Jay here from Stretford Paddock. This is a video looking at Manuel Ugarte, a player who looks like he's on the verge of joining Manchester United. In fact, he might already be a Manchester United player by the time you are watching this. So we thought we'd do a video looking at what he could bring to the Reds midfield. As always, we want you lot to get involved in the comments and the chat, and make sure, if you're not doing already, you are hitting that subscribe button. We want to get to 800,000 subscribers by, I don't know, the end of the week. And with your support, we'll get there. Right, so let's talk about Manuel Ugarte, because what do we know about him? What is he going to bring to this team? Well, we know we're looking at his stats. I mean, the kid was absolutely smashing it at PSG. There's some people that are claiming he wasn't that great. Why do they want to get rid of him? He can't be that good. Whatever. We'll get into all that later. But if you're just looking at it from a pure stats point of view, it seems he does everything you'd want from a sort of defensive-minded midfielder. His stats show him he was in the 99th percentile for many of his stats compared to midfielders last season. Per 90 minutes, he's in the top 1% for tackles, dribbles, dribblers tackled, dribblers challenged, and tackles and interceptions. I mean, that's pretty much everything you could want from a defensive midfielder. He's also towards the top percentages for tackles won and interceptions. Now, Ugarte is a solid midfielder, defensive-minded midfield player. Now, it's slightly different nowadays, isn't it? Back in the day, a defensive midfielder would only be about tackling, smashing into players. That's what he's about. Now, Ugarte offers you a bit of that, but he offers you a little bit more, as you would expect from a modern player, especially a player with the reputation he's got. Now, he also excels at cutting the ball out before it reaches the defensive line. Reminds me of a certain Michael Carrick in that respect. So I'm not saying he's as good as Michael Carrick before anyone jumps in the comments, but that there always used to be that saying about Michael Carrick in there, that he puts out fires before they get going. So you can see why Erik, why Ineos will be looking at a player like Ugarte. Now, if you look at the sort of stats, they back up the idea that he excels at cutting the ball out before it reaches the defensive line. It's proven by the fact he has more tackles in the middle third of the pitch than any other area per 90. So it's not like the ball's getting right towards his own goal before he's doing what he needs to do. He's doing it in the middle area of the pitch, which is good because obviously that's cutting out the danger before it gets, well, you know, grave. Let's look at his passing stats though as well, because like I said earlier, it's not just about tackling. Any modern defensive-minded midfielder, or six if you want to call them that, or just, you know, DM, they need to be good at passing. They need to be able to pass the ball as well, not just get hold of it and just pass it 2 yards. You want to see a little bit more than that. And I think Ugarte is quite good in this respect as well, and the stats back that up. So, compared to the likes of Manu and Bruno, Ugarte could be considered defensive-minded, because we know Bruno, for example, at times, I mean, you look at the FA Cup final, he's almost a striker. It's like false nine, or whatever you want to call it. Kobe Manu, he has played deep. He has played in that almost that double pivot six role, but he's not a six. As many people saw for England, his best position is more of an 8. And forget England, you don't even need to see what he did for England. You know that from watching him at Manchester United. He's a player that can do the business up the top end of the pitch, as we saw against Manchester City, as we saw against Wolves, as we saw against Liverpool, and he can also track back as well, and he can carry the ball too. He's got everything, Kobe Manu. I don't need to go into that, otherwise this video will just be me talking about how wonderful Kobe Manu is, because he's the greatest player ever. So let's talk about Manuel Ugarte. So with a 91% pass completion from 61.37 passes per 90, or passes attempted per 90, he proves that he's not just the last stop in midfield. He's got a bit about him when it comes to the creative process as well. He can pick a pass out. So being in the top 1% for total passing distance, Ugarte helps to control the midfield of Vitinha, Zaire Emery and Fabian Ruiz, all decent midfielders. He's helping to control that midfield for PSG. He's showing what he's about as well. So he's not just this guy who's a sort of destroyer or water carrier. He's got a little bit more to his game than that. And the stats back that up, which is good to see, because, listen, if you look at the type of midfielders Erik has gone for, Frenkie de Jong has been the obvious one. He's not just going for someone who can put a challenge in. I know De Jong and Ugarte are different, but he wants someone who can pick a pass out as well, and it's certain that Ugarte can do that. He's more successful in the medium long-range passing too, being in the upper 90% for both distances. So, I mean, this kid offers you quite a lot when it comes to passing. His tackling's good, the way he reads the game is good, and his passing is top tier as well. He's sort of ticking a lot of boxes here, isn't he, in terms of stats. I know stats don't tell you everything, but they can tell you a lot. And they're telling us a lot here about the type of player Manuel Ugarte is. Now, in terms of consistency, this is the big one for me, because Sofyan Amrabat on his day is mint, as we saw in the FA Cup final. Scott McTominay on his day is mint. Are they consistent? No. That's been a big issue. Now, Manuel Ugarte, I know it's different clubs and different teams, has been pretty consistent. If you look at his last season for Sporting, where he got the attention of PSG with a great season, and everyone was looking at him going, what an amazing season, how phenomenal. And then he went to PSG and people say, well, was he quite as good at PSG as he was at Sporting? Well, he was, actually. And the stats kind of back that up. In his breakout season, the season that everyone raves about for Sporting Lisbon, his pass completion was 91.6%. And for the following season, last season at PSG, it was 91.2%. So that's almost identical. That is consistent. And you could argue as well that I'm not going to say that the French league is more difficult than the Portuguese league, it's probably not. But getting a big move and going to a club like PSG, a little bit more pressure on you, more eyes on you, it would have been easy for him to go into himself. But you can see he's maintained that standard, which is good. And that's what you want to see from a player. You want to see a level of consistency. And hopefully he can bring that consistency to Old Trafford as well. Because if his pass completion is around that mark at United, around the 91.2 or 91.6 mark, I think we'll all be pretty happy. It is clear that the Uruguayan could be a great signing and could apply a sense of rigidity to United's midfield. We need that, don't we? We need players in a sort of set position. It's great that you can see Bruno Fernandes tracking back and helping out defensively. He'll make tackles. It's great that Kobbie Mainoo's right up the top end of the pitch. You want to see all that. It's good that we've got other players who can fill different roles, but you do want a sort of player who can fulfill a role and sort of stick to it throughout a lot of the game, and it feels like Manuel Ugarte could offer us that. Let's break some narratives down, eh? Contrary to popular belief, Ugarte is in the 84th percentile when it comes to ball carries last season. So that shows you he can carry the ball. There's this thing always, he's not someone who can carry the ball, he can just get hold of it and give it to someone else, but he can. And you can see that from the stats. Averaging nearly 60 carries per 90, Ugarte sees a lot of the ball per game, which is good because I think, again, it's this kind of weird situation you're in when you're in midfielder and you have to do a role. Yes, you have to be able to do that specific role, but you have to be able to do a little bit of everything else as well. That is modern football. No longer do you get a player who just does one job. You get him to be, I won't say jack of all trades, master of none, that's not fair, but you have to do a little bit of everything. And it feels like with Manuel Ugarte, you're getting that. Other than shooting, I won't talk about shooting, I don't think we're going to be seeing many goals from him, but certainly when it comes to carrying the ball, when it comes to passing, when it comes to putting in tackles and interceptions, he knows what he's doing. In terms of his defensive mobility and where he gets about, he's in the top 5% of touches in the defensive penalty area, matched with his top 3% of tackles in the defensive third. So when he does need to get back, when he does need to help out defensively, he does it, and he does it very well. It's safe to say that Ten Hag could rely on Ugarte to be part of the clean-up crew should the occasion arise. So what kind of impact can he make for Manchester United? Well, if Ugarte was chosen as almost that missing piece of the puzzle alongside Bruno Fernandes and Kobbie Mainoo, this could be the best route for Mainoo becoming the most box-to-box type of player we know he is. The thing with Kobbie Mainoo is he's been sort of asked at times to fill that role as a double pivot, to almost sit in front of that defence and do a lot of his work there. However, if you've got someone like Manuel Ugarte there who can just fulfill that or fill that little space, that should allow Kobbie Mainoo to get forward a little bit more and back and be the box-to-box player he is. An 8, I think Kobbie Mainoo's an 8. Get involved in the chat in the comments. Do you agree? And if you've got a scenario where you've got Manuel Ugarte as your 6, you've got Kobbie Mainoo as your 8, and you've got Bruno Fernandes as your 10, I think that's the best situation you can be in for Manchester United. And that can adapt. At times, yes, you might see Kobbie Mainoo dropping a bit deeper, so it's almost like a double pivot again. But when he needs to get forward, he can do with the freedom and the knowledge that he's got Manuel Ugarte behind him, a player who's in the top percentiles for things like tackles, for things like the way he reads the games, for interceptions, for all the good stuff you would associate with a defensive-minded midfielder. If Ugarte does come to Manchester United, or if he was already here, he could face competition for places. United are still being linked with Adrien Rabiot. That could happen. You never know, he's a free agent, so there's a possibility that they both arrive at Manchester United. McTominay doesn't look like he's going to be leaving anytime soon. He's going to be get minutes. He's going to be expected to feature, and we know the manager's been singing his praises, and we know he featured a lot last season under Erik Ten Hag and had a lot of success, especially in terms of scoring goals and that performance in the FA Cup final, which I thought was pretty underrated, where he did a bit of a job on Rodri. So Ugarte might find himself in a situation where there's 2 or 3 players vying for that position. Who knows? Maybe even Sofian Amrabat comes back. I mean, it's not been sort of said for definite that he won't, just that United won't pay 20 million euros for his services. However, don't be put off by this, because Ugarte is someone who seems to thrive on a bit of competition. He's always had that, and it doesn't faze him. When you look at who he's up against and who's alongside for PSG, the likes of Vitinha, Emery and Ruiz, all in that midfield, all vying for different positions, didn't bother him. He shone. He shone to the point where, yes, people may go, well, why are PSG looking to get rid of him? They're looking to get rid of him because they're looking to bring in João Neves, who is seen as this generational, I know everyone hates that word, talent. And it seems like there might be a little bit of sort of, well, we've got to get one out to get him in, coming into that sort of equation. So PSG's loss, because I think it will be a loss, could be Manchester United's gain, and I wouldn't be too surprised if Manuel Ugarte makes his position, his starting position in the Manchester United 11, his own. That's been a little bit of a roundup, a little bit of analysis, looking at the stats mainly for Manuel Ugarte. Stats only tell you so much though. We want to see him on that pitch, we want to see him what he's about, and hopefully we will see it very soon. Make sure you are getting involved in the chat and the comments. Don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe. I've been Jay Motti. This has been a look at United's new midfield maestro. Thanks for watching.